Hello and welcome to this very special edition of the Irish Wrestling Podcast. My name, as always, is Mark O'Brien, and I'm joined today by a very, very, very special guest, Mr. Kenny McIntosh from Inside the Ropes fame. Now, majority of you be incredibly familiar with Kenny's work. He's a promoter, a producer, a podcaster, interviewer. He has the fancy title of head of journalism at Inside the Ropes as well. He is known for his writing, his interview skills, the tours he put on all around the UK and Ireland. He's been very, very good to give us his time here this afternoon on the Inside the Ropes. From Inside the Ropes to Irish Wrestling Podcast. Kenny, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. What an introduction! I didn't need to pay you to say nice things like
Hey.
that. But yeah, no, I'm good. I'm happy to. I mean, it's very hot in Glasgow. If I'm honest with you, it's very hot, and Glaswegian people can't handle the heat, so we're just
Listen,
trying to deal with it as best we can.
I can empathize. I lived in Glasgow till I was seven, so listen, I imagine it's probably about 10, 12 degrees over there. It's probably sweltering as well, is it?
It's 19,
Oh,
but
wow. Okay. Okay.
that
Actually hot.
is too hot for me.
Okay.
Too
Yeah.
too too warm. But
Yeah, no, listen, I'm one of the same with you on that front. Listen, I'll say thanks very much for give us your time here. Like, I've been a follower of your work for some time. You've kind of rose to fame through your interview series, your writing with the likes of Whatculture Wrestling, and of course, all the work you've done with growing the brand of Inside the Ropes. For those very, very few people in this part of the world who probably from the wrestling space who wouldn't be familiar with your work, could you give people a bit of background in terms of how you got into the space, what's kind of got into going your journey through the last 10 years of doing the road shows or Inside the Ropes and yeah, your hopes for the future as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I always loved wrestling when I was a kid,
Mm,
and I then with my friend Robert, we saw there was this kind of not great community radio show on in Glasgow, and we thought we could do one better, so we started Inside the Ropes, and then the next year we started doing live shows, and that's just kind of gone from strength to strength to strength. I did write for Whatculture. None of it was any good. I'm not a good writer, so and that's not me trying to be modest to get a compliment. I'm a bad writer. Like I'm
okay.
not. It's not my forte. So I appreciate anyone who does do it. But I did try,
Yeah.
and I wrote. I mean, those top 10 lists. My God, it's just
Yeah.
soul destroying. But you do it because it's what you need to do. So, um, and yeah, I guess I'm most known for doing interviews on the Inside the Ropes YouTube channel or in the Inside the Ropes magazine that you can get in like Smiths or
Uh-huh.
whatever would be the local store, whatever you
Yeah.
are. And yeah, so we do live shows still. So we're doing Eric Bischoff in September.
Yeah.
So yeah, we kind of had to stop doing them for a while during COVID, obviously,
Uh-huh.
because nobody was doing anything. But then we started the magazine, we started our website at itrwrestling.com. So yeah, I'm busier probably than I've ever been, but
Mm.
I think when you ever do anything like this, and I think people who do this full time in wrestling will understand it, is that it kind of feels that you're cheating that you've got this job, so you kind of feel like you have to constantly be doing stuff to make sure it doesn't go away.
No,
Because
listen,
I think if I had to do like a 9 to 5 job now, I think I would really struggle. I don't. I think I'm so far out of it that I
uh-huh.
think I would really struggle. So that mindset is what keeps you kind of going. I need to keep going. I need to make it better.
Well, listen, you're living the dream many of us have, in terms of being able to work full time within something you're so passionate about and having something so creatively fulfilling. So listen, more power to you and huge kudos. You're once termed, and it's labeled on your Instagram, the Vince McMahon of Europe. Now, from the one and only Jim Ross, how does that feel to be known collectively for the continent as the Vince McMahon of Europe?
I mean, obviously, I don't
Yeah,
believe
no, I
that,
know, I know.
but I do. Yeah, I mean, it was a very flattering thing that he said. I mean, I paid him to come over, so like
So yeah,
he's gonna say some nice things to me.
uh,
But no, I mean, it's really nice to hear. I think the Undertaker tour, which I'm sure people are aware of, that was supposed to happen, that was a big knock of confidence because a lot of people had to be let down by that. But I mean, I think that in terms of the kind of interviews that I do, I think I'm good at doing them, and I
mm,
think that kind of keeps me. I cause, like we did the Gangrel show in Glasgow on
yeah,
Sunday, and um, when we were sadly done all my research and stuff, and I was ready to go, and then he had sort of said when he got there, "Oh, I'm not really a talker." I was like, "All right, okay, it's going to be tough
mm,
because we're going on stage," and um, and I just kind of was like, "Look, everything I'm going to ask you, I've researched what you're good at talking about, like where there's stories, where I can maybe take something further and get more out of it." Um, yeah, so we did the show and we were on for like 2 hours, and at the end of it, I was like, I think I nailed that one. but I think I've got the ability to know when I have nailed something or whether I haven't. So I think that keeps me kind of grounded because, Jim Ross saying that kind of throwaway line, which I
Mm,
obviously put on my Instagram. Part of the reason it's there is because it reminds me that that was an off-cuff comment that was made at one time. So I need to try my best to remember that, there's a lot of people who could be doing this job and taking people around the UK. I'm the only one who's left doing them.
mm,
But you can't be complacent because as soon as you're
yeah.
complacent, then your shows get crap and you're kind of hanging on by the based on what you used to be able to do. So every single show we do, though, I'm just as on edge and nervous as the one I did 10 years ago because you never know. You can go on stage and then somebody can just decide they're not going to talk today, they're not in the mood. You could say something that rubs them up the wrong way.
Yeah.
So I'm very aware of it all.
Well, listen, as a regular attendee, I can attest to that you create a very much an interactive environment. You create a great fan experience for those who attend the shows. I've attended in Belfast, Dublin, and Cork, and I've absolutely loved it. I haven't been lucky enough to attend any of the shows over in the UK. Fortunately, I wanted to go over to the William Regal show you did last year, but wasn't able to get over in time. But just in terms of you've been doing this for 10 years, and I took a quick look through the number of guests you've had, some of the names have you gone through. You've had Gangrel, as you mentioned recently, DDP, Paul Heyman, Shawn Michaels, Goldberg, Mick Foley, Edge, Cody Rhodes, or Rob Van Dam, William Regal, Chris Jericho, Kurt Angle, Scott Steiner, Big Show, Dustin Rhodes, Jim Cornette, Jim Ross, Cody and Brandy Rhodes again over in Ireland, Wade Barrett. That's just a snapshot of some of the guests you've had on various different tours around this part of the world. When it's laid out like that, how does it make you feel? For somebody you're saying you don't treat it as a real job, but you've achieved a huge amount in that space, and you are rightly seen, I suppose, as the face of wrestling in this part of the world, not necessarily as the Vince McMahon of this part of the world, but very much as part of the wrestling media space. You're the face of the kind of the mainstream wrestling media over this part of the world.
I mean, the list, whenever I read the list or hear the list, it's always kind of like, oh my God, we did that many people.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm very proud of what we've been able to do.
Mm,
And you talk about the real job thing. So it is a conundrum thing because I mean, it encompasses my entire life. I never have a day off. I've not had a day off in 10 years. Well, I mean, I've had a few, but like not really. Like every
yeah.
day, even if you're on holiday, you're still doing stuff. So I think almost when you have a job that's not a real job in inverted commas, you have to work way harder
Uh-huh.
to make it a real job for you. So um, I mean, we're in a weird position now because a lot of the names who we got before,
Mm,
we got at a time when they were very affordable well, not very affordable, they were affordable to do. But now with WWE and AEW having such massive contracts, it's not feasible to get a lot of the people that 3 years ago you could have got, 4 years ago you could have got. So now we're doing, we're trying different stuff. Like the Gangrel thing on Sunday was like an into the evening thing. We're not expecting 300 people to turn up and see Gangrel, but we're going, well, 100 people might turn up and we
mm.
can do something fun. So it's making me kind of have to think outside the box a little bit more. And yeah, and it's weird because I think what happened with COVID that was kind of interesting was that obviously, like the events, I would say were probably 80% of my income,
Mm.
and then that was all gone, the whole thing. So I then knew that I had to, what if there's a COVID again in 5 years? God
Yeah.
forbid there is, but what if there's another one?
Uh-huh.
I can't base the majority of my income on events. So
Mm.
events have now become this thing where we still do them. We're still going to try and do them. But I think before what I used to do was be very like aware of we need to top what we've done before. We need to do another big name. We need to, but then now I'm kind of at the point where I'm like, do you know what? I'm just going to do shows that make sense for me to do them, that I think would be fun, and I think I could, you know, actually break even and make a bit of money on, rather than sort of. I don't think I was ever fully doing it, but I think I was probably near the end pre-COVID on the road to being a bit of a mark about the names because I was trying to get people that people were going to think, oh,
Yeah.
he's topped the thing they've done before. But I mean, you read that list of names, there's not really MD I can do to top that list.
Yeah.
Like Steve Austin. Yeah, well, do you know what? The cost to get Steve Austin doesn't do appearances in Texas.
Yeah. Yeah.
How exactly am I meant to convince the guy to come over? And then it's like, when we did Undertaker, I remember there was people who were complaining, like, actually, this is a good rant for you. I've not told
Okay.
before. You know what? These fuckers, right? Sorry if I'm not allowed to swear, but these people, right, who came at me when the Undertaker tour got announced for the price of the tickets, right? I think it was like 220 quid for a VIP ticket.
Mm.
That was the lowest I could make that, so that if we sold all the VIP tickets, it would be a profitable thing to do.
Mm.
And then you'd have somebody going like, "Oh, it's disgusting how much you've charged. You know, I've got 3 kids," and I'm like, "It's not my fault. You've procreated 3 times. That's not my issue." That I've then got to defend.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he obviously he's now doing the show with WWE, which, you know, people obviously are like, "Are you okay with it?" I'm fine with it. I'm not going to go, but I'm okay with it. But it I think the prices are more expensive now
Yeah.
to see him, and it's like people just don't understand when you're doing it how difficult it is to price things and
Yeah.
to make everyone happy, because you can't make everyone happy. So I think that I now am at a point where I'm like, I'm not going to try and top things anymore. I'm just going to be like, who's fun, who would be good. And, you know, Regal
Yeah.
last year was a great one.
Yeah.
RVD was really good. I think Bischoff's going to be really good.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of concentrating on ones that are going to be fun, and I think people are going to walk away going, that was a great show, rather than just trying to get a name for the sake of it.
Yeah, and I think all the shows you've done recently have been interesting is the best way to describe it. Even Gangrel, like you say he's kind of maybe a slightly introverted, not a great talker, but I would say he has amazing stories because he's had kind of wide ranging career. And then you talk about William Regal on the stage he was at in terms of doing his podcast, going to AEW. And now you've got Eric Bischoff, who's maybe somewhat a controversial figure these days, once more just based on his kind of outspoken nature in regards to AEW and the current landscape of wrestling.
The Bischoff one is a
Yeah.
little bit easier because when I worked at Whatculture, we did do a tour with Bischoff
Mm.
for Whatculture. So I've worked with him before. So me and him are great. We've wanted to do something for a while. So the Bischoff one is actually probably going to be. I mean, I say this now, and it'll come back to bite me, but I feel like it's going to be one of the least stressful experiences from a talent point of view,
Yeah.
because I know him, I'm friends with him, we have a good relationship.
Yeah.
He is the least diva type person in the world.
Great, okay.
So I think from that perspective, I think we're gonna have fun, which I think will in turn be good for the crowd. It's funny because you mentioned, you know, it's an interactive show. Well, I mean, it's been interactive to varying degrees over the years. We used to give people the mic during the Q&A, which is a disaster.
Yeah.
Because they then think the mic is theirs for as long as they want the mic. And that became a problem. So now it's like people can write a question and we'll choose which one and we'll read it out and then try and move it on. So, I mean, when you do these shows, you kind of have to try things and see what works and see what doesn't work. But I still have slight PTSD from someone giving somebody in the crowd a mic and that person being like 10 seats into a row, and it's like, what are we going to do? They don't want to give the mic back. So and Heyman, and when we did the Heyman show in London, he was a guy did that, and Heyman basically went for the guy a little bit to get the mic back.
Yeah.
But not every wrestler's going to feel confident to roast a member of the crowd. So I'm glad we don't do that anymore.
No, listen, I can only imagine that kind of lack of control in those situations would drive me up the wall as well. But this even as cool as that you're mentioning there that Eric Bischoff's your friend, like how cool is that to be able to say out loud? Like somebody is as illustrious in the wrestling business as he is, and the fact that you're also being flown here, there, and everywhere to conduct interviews. Like I know you've done we're in Starrcast a few times. You did the Johnny Gargano, What's Next? You did the Cody Brandy and Dustin interview. You did the 30 years of Bret Hart. Like, what's that kind of been like when as your own profile's grown outside of this part of the world to being flown to Conrad Land over in Starrcast to being one of the main interviewers? So those huge gets.
It's very nice. I love Conrad. He's always been great to me. I think that the challenge of it is when you go there, like so if I'm doing a show in the UK or Ireland, like people tend to know it's me doing the interviews, so you know they'll give me a bit of a very polite cheer when I come on stage because you know that's just what they're lovely. But in America, nobody cares. So you come out there and it's like you've got entrance music and you're like, oh god, it's so cringe because you're in this kind of big airplane hangar or convention hall, and it's like it's these people who the majority of them don't know who I am.
Yeah.
So it's like a harder fight. So it is good, but I would be lying if I said I was as comfortable doing that as I am doing doing the stuff that I do in the UK and Ireland, because it's so much more uh, interactive. Like, because people have been to shows before, they know what to expect. So yeah, it is fun to do them. I do enjoy going and doing them, but I do shit myself quite often. Like, I remember the first one I did in 2019 was just me and Dustin, and we'd done a UK tour before, so it was like an extension of that. And we're in this hall, but we were like on at the exact same time as Jericho was supposed to be on. And I was like, oh god, we're gonna have like 10 people. It's gonna be a nightmare, and it's like a big hall. I was like, oh, okay, it is what it is. And then we found out that Jericho had. I don't know if I don't want to say he'd cancelled. I
Delayed
think there
maybe.
was a miscommunication between him doing a panel show and not. So it was announced very late that that panel show is not happening. So like 250, 300 people from next door came through at the beginning of the Dustin show, which was like a blessing
Yeah.
in disguise. But yeah, it's funny because over there it's like, who's this weird British guy? Like, that they can't understand. So
Yeah.
I've got to be very, very slow. Because I remember years and years and years ago, I interviewed Vince Russo for the podcast, like 2012, I think it was. And at the end, I said, "Oh, can you do like a jingle for us where it's like, my name is Vince Russo and you're listening to Inside the Ropes."
Yeah.
And he said, "Yeah, sure." And then he went, "This is Vince Russo and you're listening to Insane Divorce." And that's what he thought I was saying. He thought me saying Inside the Ropes was Insane Divorce.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so I very quickly understood that if I'm talking to a wrestler or if I'm over in the States, I have to be so slow in the way that I talk. And I'm a mumbler by nature, so I really have to try more. So that's also a bit challenging. But for first world problems, right?
That's unbelievable though. The fact that you're in a situation where you're thinking you're getting nobody's going to turn up, and then 10 seconds later you've got 300 people coming at you at once. That would have me panicking beyond belief, but just that kind of last minute change of plans. But anyway, that's an
But then
unbelievable.
if you've got people, if you've got enough people who are making a noise,
Yeah.
that is way more of a comfortable
Yeah.
atmosphere. If there's not a lot of people, it's a tougher.
Yeah.
So it is weird in that sense. Like, you would think that the smaller would make it easier, but
Yeah.
I think when you've done like Shawn Michaels in Dublin in front of 1,000 people,
Yeah.
you're more used to the noise.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. And like the fact that you were flown over to last year to highlight the milestone 30 years of Bret Hart. What was it like working with Bret for that, to be flown over as being for such a milestone event as well? So to be talking about the SummerSlam 1992 match. What was that like for you to be given that kind of that honor as such?
It was good. I think because we'd done the tour with Bret in the UK
Mm,
in 2019, it was a lot easier because
mm,
I'd worked with him
yeah.
before. I think the difficulty was, obviously, how do you say this respectfully? Um, Bret is a big fan of Bret,
Mm,
right? Which is great, but if you're doing the SummerSlam '92 match, you kind
yeah.
of have to guide it into being a bit Bulldog as well.
Yeah.
So that was the challenge. But and then it was funny because like we were backstage, and I remember somebody came up to me and said, this has to just be about the SummerSlam '92 match. And I was like, yeah, no, that's the questions that I've got. And this was like Bret's people. But I think that week stories had come out about Goldberg or something. The problem is when Bret gets on stage or gets on a podcast or in an interview,
Yeah.
he'll say something and it's a great line.
Yeah.
It's reported everywhere.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it was a challenge to do an hour about a match
Yeah.
with a guy who is older and stuff.
Yeah.
But again, it was a good challenge to have. And I think with Bret, people just want to hear him
Yeah.
say whatever he feels about anything. So
Be Bret. Yeah.
yeah, so I think you kind of want Brett to be a bit like, Bulldog was really good, but I was better. Or whatever it was he would say. Like, people just kind of want him to do that. So, but I was only supposed to be going over to do that one. And then they asked me to do the Gargano one as
Uh-huh.
well, which is great. But I mean, the
Yeah.
Gargano one, the tough thing about that was it was 2 hours before SummerSlam.
Yeah.
So people were kind of already leaving to go to SummerSlam.
Mm,
But I mean, Johnny Gargano and Dexter Lumis and Candice LeRae, they were
yeah.
so nice. They were such nice people. Not, I mean, Bret was nice as well. I'm not saying Bret was a dick, but yeah, no, it was a good experience.
No, listen, I watched them all on Fight as well, and I thought they're very, very good. And even the Samuel Shaw intervention with the Johnny Gargano, Dexter Lumis, so that was really, really cool. But listen, you've been incredibly generous with your time, Kenny. Like, before we kind of wrap up here, I was wondering, going forward, let's start for the Eric Bischoff tour is coming up at the end of this year, or the next coming months rather, here in Ireland and the UK. What can fans expect if this is their first time attending an Inside the Ropes show, or the first time seeing yourself or Eric Bischoff live? What can fans expect from such a marquee show traveling all around the UK and Ireland?
I think what you can expect is kind of like a full night. You know,
Yeah.
like the VIP starts at like 5 o'clock, and then the show's at 7:30, and you'll be there till like almost 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
So you can get a kind of whole night out of it. It's in, you know, you can have a drink, you can get chatting to people. There's merch, and then you know when I do the interview, it tends to be like a topic that I'll pick out that I'll do like an hour of, but then I'll have questions from the audience, from the VIP people. So it tends to just be like a good atmosphere of people getting to hear stories, some that you've heard, some that you've not heard. Bischoff is someone who, in particular, is going to be good because um, he will be reactive to the crowd. Like, it's funny. So, Glasgow used to be our most rowdy audience, and then Belfast entered the room.
Okay.
And Belfast are the rowdiest audience I've ever seen. And I feel like they are getting rowdier and rowdier every time we go, which is terrifying. And like we did the Kurt Angle tour last year, and I've never felt this doing a show before. But so they heckle all the time, and it's meant in a nice way. It's not meant as like to be a dick, but like they'll heckle, and then Kurt Angle would like respond to every heckle that happened. And the whole show, well, from about 15 minutes in, it felt like the whole show was on this kind of like tightrope of
Yeah.
this could go off a cliff at any second, which is something I've never had to experience before. So I'm prepared that in Belfast, luckily it's in the smaller limelight room, so I'm hoping that's going to take some of that craziness away. But Belfast or in Belfast and Glasgow, they are definitely wild. Dublin as well. The Irish cities, the Northern Irish, Belfast City, and Glasgow tend to be really rowdy. So if you're going to one of those, expect a rowdy night. If you're going to London, expect a more relaxed, chilled night. Good people, good vibes. But yeah, I think if people haven't come before, they should. I think people will walk away thinking they got their money's worth.
Yeah, 100%. Like I'm thoroughly excited myself, and it's funny you mentioned the Kurt Angle show. Like he did, even at the Dublin show, he would interact with the crowd and kind of chirp back at people. But thankfully, it was a Monday night in Dublin, so I think a lot of people were still struggling for the weekend. So they wouldn't have had the same energy as the Belfast crowd might have had. But listen, I'm thoroughly excited myself. And before you go, I have to ask you now with huge summer of wrestling over here in the UK and Ireland. We just had Money in the Bank, got All In coming up in the weeks ahead. What were your thoughts on Money in the Bank weekend as a whole spectacle weekend, and what are your hopes for All In at the end of the summer?
I thought Money in the Bank was great. I thought it was a really good show. I thought the SmackDown the night before was a fun live experience as well. And I think it's shown that you can kind of get away with doing shows like this in the UK and Ireland. And I think, you know, I could see them doing a big Irish show in Dublin. You know, you've got Becky Lynch, you've got Finn Balor, you've got people who are kind of homegrown talent. I always get nervous because I can sometimes not remember who's from Northern Ireland or Republic of Ireland. So I'm always like walking a tightrope of that. But in the Republic of Ireland, I feel like because they were going to do a takeover Dublin with Walter and Finn before, so I can see them doing something like that. And then with All In, they've got. I mean, it's a massive success already. They've not. I mean, I saw Tony Khan say that, you know, in some ways they're the industry leader in the UK, which I mean it's your first show. You've got to deliver that first show. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what the card is for All In, because I feel like the expectation for that is going to be very, very high. So I hope that they can. I think they will deliver. I think Tony Khan understands the magnitude of what it is for the first UK show. I hope that there's something big that happens on it, like a title change, or because we've got Roman getting pinned at Money in the Bank. So I think they need to do something that's a big moment on that show.
Likewise, and I think that Tony Khan comment, it kind of does annoy me every time I hear it, because like it's based on purely like ITV's got more households than TNT or BT Sport does, and that's based on that. But nobody watches TV anymore; everybody watches YouTube. So that's the actual reflection on that. But listen, Kenny, you've been hugely giving me your time. Very last question now before I let you go.
Sure.
It's a bit. Two of us got a big summer year ahead now. Listen, Brendan Rodgers taking over at Celtic. For you, we had the treble winning last year. What are your hopes for the season ahead for Rangers?
I mean, it can't be any worse than last year. So I think I don't even need to be worried.
Yeah,
It cannot be worse than last year. So I think, but I mean, I think the thing is, Rangers fans who have a brain knew that this past season was going
yeah.
to be the way that it was.
Uh-huh.
It's like 2 seasons ago when Rangers
Yeah,
won. Celtic fans knew what was about to happen. Like they were not idiots. So
yeah,
I think I think it's going to be good though. If because deep down, if you're a Rangers or a Celtic fan, you like when there's some drama.
yeah.
Like as much as it's good to win 9 in a row or whatever
Uh,
a team has won in a row, it's not as fun as when they almost beat you and then you beat them.
mm,
Or like that's
yeah,
what you
yeah.
want. So I hope that this year it's a bit more competitive than it was, but yeah, I'm not holding out hope. So
I,
we'll
I
see.
actually, I actually do think it will be. I think the last Old Firm game you won 3-0 with Todd Cantwell running the show. I think Michael Beale's actually got them playing good football, and Celtic just lost 6-4 to a Japanese minnows team. So never know what's going to
Sure.
happen
But
here.
you know,
Now.
it's more about the matches that you win or lose when it really counts.
Yeah,
Yeah, we won 3-0 after Celtic had won the league. It's not,
I know.
it's like a child's birthday prize. It's
Yeah,
like it's but I mean, yeah, I think the fact that Big Ange left should make it a bit more
yeah,
open.
yeah.
So
I was
we'll see.
heartbroken, but yeah, like my biggest
Yeah.
Australian hunk left me. But anyway,
My
listen,
my barber is a Celtic fan, so I was commiserating for him when it
uh,
happened. Well, but I think I think it'll be an interesting year ahead for football.
yeah, particularly Scottish football anyway. But listen, Kenny, you've been more than generous with your time. Where can Irish fans who are looking for a bit more of your own content, where can we find you? Where can they find more about Inside the Ropes?
The best places to look are you can find us on YouTube, youtube.com/ inside the ropes. We've got a YouTube channel. It's got almost 300,000 subscribers. We've got
Yeah,
live show clips going up all the time, interview clips. We do a wrestling news site, itrwrestling.com. We've got a magazine, inside the ropes magazine.com, where you can pick it up. I just interviewed Bailey for the last issue. Finn Martin writes for it, who used to run Power Slam. So there's loads of like old Power Slam features in there that you'll remember if you were a Power Slam fanatic like myself. Um, is there anything
I've
else?
got
What
a few of your
else?
magazines actually in the room with me here, actually.
There
Yeah,
we go.
yeah,
There
yeah,
we go. With again a nod to Power Slam with the
yeah,
design on the
yeah.
front. So I think that's the main thing. Is there anything else? Oh, and the Bischoff tour, if you want to come to that, itrtix.com, TIX. There's still tickets available in Dublin and Cork, but Belfast is sold out. So no more in Belfast.
Perfect. Listen, Kenny, that you've been hugely generous with your time. Thank you very, very much. As a regular listener, subscriber, reader of everything from yourself and Inside the Ropes, I just want to thank you 100%. Really appreciate your time. Listen, for all Irish wrestling fans, please make sure to follow Kenny on all his content channels, follow everything from Inside the Ropes. Continue to follow myself, Colin, Jerry, Elizabeth, as well as Foxy, and continue to subscribe everything from Irish Wrestling Podcast. Thank you very much for your time.